There we go.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Yeah, I gotta say, this is, I think, the smoothest beginning we've had so far. There's almost always technical issues.
It's only been a few seconds. Don't jinx it yet.
It's a good, it's a good point. Never mind, it's going horribly.
All right, we're gonna roll with this then.
Yeah, we'll go for it. So, first off, most important thing I can ask you today, how you doing?
I'm awake. How are you?
Also, wait, is that your
We're
training
good.
facility?
Okay. Yeah, this is my home gym.
Nice.
Good morning, everyone who's tuning in. Thank you for coming to hang out with us for a little bit.
Should be fun. We set this up, what, a month ago, I think?
Yes.
Around there, yeah. Long time coming, but it's finally here. So, getting
Let's
into it.
let's do it.
Let's do it. Getting into it. So, where are you from, first off?
I am originally from Brooklyn, New York.
All right, nice.
Yes.
If you don't mind me asking, how old are you right
That's
now?
cool. I'm 42. I'm gonna be 43 this year. So yeah.
So you're a master's lifter, right?
I am an M1. Yes, I am.
Do you still compete with just Pro Open, or do you compete at masters?
I compete primarily open, but if it's an opportunity for me to also compete masters as well, I'll do it too. Thankfully, most of our comps that, if you're like a junior and you're open as well, you can still knock out both at the same time. So if I can do it, I do it. Any opportunity to go after breaking some records, sure, why not? I'll do it.
That's a fun kind of mentality to have. Let's go for it.
Got to
So
push it
how
as
long?
long as we can.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you look at someone like Jen Thompson. I think she's got 5 or 6 years on you, and she's still pushing records, right?
You better be accurate about that. I don't think Jen's that much older than me. No, I'm just playing. No, I'm serious. I don't think she's that much older. Go ahead.
Which she's 45, maybe? Okay.
Yeah, and I'll be 43 this year.
All right,
So,
too. Math isn't my strong suit. I've hit a couple accidental PRs because I couldn't do the kilo conversions.
hey, those are fine as long as you hit them. So,
Yeah. So how long have you been lifting?
shit, man. Lifting itself, like the first time I picked up a weightlifting, I was
Yeah.
13. So, almost 30 years. Powerlifting, about 21 years, 21, 22 years. Yeah.
So did you ever cross over with Jen? Because I think she's been competing about the same amount of time in powerlifting.
Like crossover with regards to.
Like do the same meets.
Oh yeah, over the last few years, we've done a lot of meets together. We've been on the same teams. I know, except for the people just joining powerlifting probably within the last year or two. The first 14, 15 years of my powerlifting career, I competed USAPL. So we were on a lot of teams together and also had a lot of meets together. So,
So did you always compete raw or do you ever compete equipped?
I started powerlifting as an equipped lifter. It's back in that day, like 2000, 2001, equipped for the pretty much most of the time was the number one version of powerlifting that we all did. Raw, I think, started to squeeze in around 2010, 2011. So, I even though primarily most of my training cycles were actually raw before I even switched into equipment. So yeah, half my career I was equipped, and I'm gonna plug it now. I know a lot of us coming in are really all about raw. I love raw lifting, but I think if you want to make yourself a more well-rounded power lifter, you got to try both because there's strengths in both of them, which will make you a better lifter as long as you stay in the sport.
So why do you think there was that shift between when you were starting out and 2010, 2011?
I think for one thing, raw lifting was less expensive because all you need is your body versus, equipment, even when you're buying like equipment like a bench suit and deadlift suit and squat suit, for some people it can be expensive. And a lot of us sometimes maybe don't even start powerlifting till when high school, college, and unless you have a large source of funding to get you through, you're worried more about paying your bills and eating and going less than about, damn, can I afford that $150, $200, suit or shirt? So raw lifting made it easy for anyone to do it because as long as you could move, you could lift. And I think that's what's just happened over the years.
That's fair. So why do you think you focused on powerlifting as opposed to something like bodybuilding or weightlifting?
I like to eat food. So I was like, ooh, I could do something where I can lift heavy weights and I don't have to worry about eating, rice and chicken with no seasoning for a month or so. No knocks on bodybuilders, but I love to eat. That was the main reason why I was like, no, I don't want to do this. I like to lift weights, so that'll work for me.
Well, you have bounced between weight classes though, right? I think 63 and 74. You have
Yes, I was
titles in
younger
both.
and lighter, so it was easy. So I just went where my body went. When I started out, it was the 148 class, and then we switched classes. And then I became a 63 kilo, and then I went to 72, and then now, as you see here, I had to choose between either compete in both now in 69 or 76, and I'm still deciding on that. I'm thankful that I'm in the position to do that. So, but 69 for now. So we'll see.
Because I've,
You you got to
I've,
go where you're most competitive and what works for you and what's healthy. Let me say that competitive and healthy. So
did you ever find yourself trying to cut tremendously and squeeze yourself into a weight class, or you just always go with what your body felt like?
I always went with what my body felt like. Actually, now I can talk about it because the class doesn't even exist anymore. But when I was a 72, I was actually eating up just to try and stay in 72s. Like a lot of people in my circle know, like there were times when I was drinking like those, what do you call it? Those protein shakes, like 1,000 calorie protein shakes. Yeah, I was about that life, just trying to keep weight on. So when this happened, it was an easy natural transition for me because I was already in the class, so I didn't have to worry about fighting about it. Cottrell Z5, I saw that. So
Yeah, I feel like that's a mistake that a lot of people make is trying to squeeze themselves into that lighter weight class. Like I know there's a strongman named Terry Rady
mhm.
who he said, he was a 90 kilo guy and then eventually he stopped weighing 198 pounds and then he became a middleweight, but he never really made that big cut. Like I know, I mean, Taylor Atwood's a good example as well. He doesn't really get that much above 165, right? I mean, maybe like 170, 174-ish, but and he's top level as you are, but I think there's definitely something to be said for not trying to, if Taylor tried to cut to 66 kilos, it probably wouldn't go too well for him.
Well, this is what I would tell people if they're seriously thinking about it, and I feel like I can speak from experience because I've been doing this for over 20 something years. If you're really thinking about whether you need to go up or go down, first thing you should be telling yourself, is this healthy? If you've never been to get yourself a DEXA scan, I would suggest that. If you can make that happen, a DEXA scan where they could determine how much of you is muscle mass versus fat, so you can determine how much you actually could lose in a healthy way and still be number one, healthy and competitive. And then from that point, then you could determine, okay, third, where I'm going to be most competitive. Because the first thing you need to be thinking is that if it's not healthy, can you see yourself sustaining this for your whole career, making these crazy drops? Maybe if you're only doing it once a year, but these are things that you got to consider if you want to stay in the sport as long as you can, because literally every decision you make matters.
Yeah, I think that's not just exclusive to powerlifting. Do you ever watch the UFC?
Yes, I do. I do.
Do you
I do.
know Anthony Rumble Johnson?
No, but I like his name. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's an awesome name. But he started out his career as a welterweight at 170 pounds.
Uh-huh.
He finished his career as a heavyweight. He couldn't make that cut. I think for a while he held the UFC record for I think he was 11 pounds overweight at weigh-ins.
Hmm.
And so exactly what you said, it just wasn't sustainable for his long-term career. He was a middling welterweight, not great as a middleweight. He missed weight there too. But then as a light heavyweight, he was in title contention two or three times. So it's definitely about finding what works for you.
Couldn't agree more.
So when you're not lifting, what do you what's your day job looking like?
When I'm not lifting, I am a civil servant. I serve my community. That's pretty much what I do. But real talk, I'm a powerlifter 24/7. I'm always thinking about it, and I think a lot of us are. You know, whether you're a student or whatever other career field you work in, you always find some way to be thinking about it. I love to tell this story because I think it's funny as hell. There are times sometimes when I go to the bathroom at work and I'm still practicing like squat technique, or I'm thinking about something, hoping nobody comes in and catches me. But if so, I'm just going to tell them what I'm doing. I'm not embarrassed. Like, you should always be trying to be thinking about what you're doing regarding this sport in prep. Other things I like to do is like everybody else. I love to travel. I love spending time, with my girlfriend, or family when I can. Just enjoying like museums and everything else. Just making time. I think that's most important. I think sometimes we all kind of just get wrapped up in our lives and forget to take time for ourselves. So that's something I've really worked on as well.
So I guess at this stage in your career, do you feel a sense of urgency to hit records? Because I know a lot of people closer to my age, 'cause I'm 19,
Oh,
everyone
you're
wants,
19?
yeah,
Go ahead.
I was born when you started competing. You're welcome.
Pretty much, thanks.
Um, but I know a lot of people my age will be like, oh, I have to bench 405 by the time I graduate college. I have to do this by then. Do you feel that at this point, or are you more just doing it for yourself and it happens to work out that you're the best in the world?
Uh, I'll say this once, I've never felt that way. I can tell you I've always had goals. I've always had goals throughout my career, and then you just focus on doing all you can to hit those. You can say that for each cycle, this is the range of numbers I want to hit, but we all know that what matters is what you do on meet day. We all can have that plan, but sometimes there's factors that are not in your control that you just have to be prepared to adapt to whatever happens. Like, for instance, a lot of people don't know this, and I see some of our, international lifters kicking in as well, that when you get to international comps specifically, you don't know about how travel is going to affect you. The time changes. If you're going to be able to get to your plane on time, how far you got to walk to that next concourse to catch that plane. Damn, I haven't eaten. What does the airport have? Did I bring enough food? Did I get enough sleep? Like, all that stuff is the things. What is it like at the hotel? Where's the nearest supermarket? The things that people don't think about. Water retention on the plane. All this stuff that you're fighting just to try and ensure that you're prepared by the time you get to the platform that people on the web stream don't get to see. And then having to control all those factors, weigh in, and then be able to do what you came to do from whatever country you're coming from. A lot of that stuff affects how people compete. So you can have these goals and it's great to have them, but you also have to be able to adapt as they come. So in my career, I've always just, like I said, kept a list of goals, and as I break them, I keep it moving. I don't feel an urgency to do anything because I don't know how much time I have. I just know I have this strength for a finite amount of time, and I'm just going to ride it as long as I can. Is the biggest thing that you can tell yourself is like, and I always say this, when I come to a competition, I know in my heart I'm as prepared as I'm going to be for whatever's going to happen. I know that I prepared myself to hit a range of numbers, and if I can hit those range of numbers, most likely I'm going to hit my goals, and that's what I work towards. Because a lot of people don't think about it, but you don't know if it could be your last meet. So you have to treat every meet as if it could be your last meet. And I know you hear it in a lot of like sports analogies and memes and stuff like that, but it's the truth, because look what happened last year, COVID. Still recovering from COVID. So that was almost a year and a half, and no competitions. I had to make a transition that I didn't want to make from, one IPF federation to another, but it happened, and I kept it moving. But I had to sit out a year from Worlds, not because I wanted to, but because I didn't have a choice in that matter. But best believe that when I got the opportunity again, I was even hungrier than I was before that unfortunate situation happened to me. So that's how you got to treat it. Guys, you can look ahead, you can look 6 years ahead of the stuff you want to accomplish, but you don't know if those opportunities are going to be here for you 6 years from now. So every time you come down and you train, you got to take it seriously if you're serious about the sport, if you're serious about the things you want to accomplish. And this is how I feel, about it, and this is the stuff I pass along to other people.
Well, I mean, clearly it's worked for you. this kind of mentality. And I was
I
actually going to
guess
ask
so.
you about, huh?
I said, yeah, I guess so. So,
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your mentality going into lifting, but that just kind of answered it. So do you think that that year off helped you? Because I see you have the home gym set up, or do you think having nothing to train towards just kind of made you feel bored, or what was that like for you as a top level athlete who didn't have access to go to Worlds anymore?
are we talking? You talking about COVID? Well, if we're
Yeah,
talking about
go.
COVID, then didn't affect me in a way other than it didn't affect me. I'm gonna just keep it real. The people who know me know that I stay focused on what I need to do because I just know that I need to be prepared for the time when I'm gonna step back on the platform. Um, and that's what my mentality was. Is I kept setting myself up that way that I have to stay prepared because I know that I will get back on the platform, and I want to make sure that I'm as prepared as I can be to be able to compete against everyone else. Because I'm only doing myself a disservice, and that goes for you or anybody else. If you can't give your all, it's different if you don't have access to equipment and you're trying to make the most of what you have. But for the people who have access to equipment, if you're not training your ass off to continue to be ready, then that's on you, and you're only making it easier for the people you compete against. And I'm not going to do that. The people who know me know I'm not making it easy for you. So
Makes sense. So before you were a civil servant, I think you were in the military for some time. Is that right?
yeah, I was in the military too.
So
Mhm.
how did that affect your life? And I guess, well, first off, like, how long were you in?
Well, about roughly about 8 years. You know, the funny thing is it actually brought me to powerlifting. So
Really?
yes,
How so?
I was stationed at one of my bases, and one of my training buddies. At the time, I was just working out just to work out because I wanted to stay in shape. And one of my training buddies said to me, "Hey, they have this bench meet on base," and I was like, "Bench meet?" And he explained. I was like, "Oh, a bench press competition." I was like, "All right, I'll do it." And well, initially I kept brushing them off, saying, "Nah, I didn't want to do it." I said I was one of those people who said I only like to work out just to keep my body fit. I don't want to do it for anything else. But he kept asking, and I'm happy that he did because it convinced me to try it. And I competed in that meet, and I was like, "What is this? Is this a sport or something?" And it was like I was hooked from that point on. I started like doing research about federations and records and how to qualify for nationals and worlds. Like I really got into it, and I moved from that point. And 20 something years later, I'm still here.
So what was the access to information like back then, as opposed to, everyone now can look up westsidebarbell.com or find their favorite powerlifter on Instagram. What were you researching with?
Used Powerlifting USA. That was one of the major magazines. A lot of people are familiar with it now, and actually, believe it or not, even some of I know people are familiar with Open IPF. Uh, that's actually one of the sources that they use to pull the information from all the old, records and stuff. The other thing I would do is because in Powerlifting USA, they also gave you the breakdown of all the results of the meets, so you could go back and look on there. We did have internet back in 2001, 2002. So it wasn't as advanced, but they had web pages, so we could see some things on there. But primarily, Powerlifting USA, the magazine, is what we use.
How do you think that has affected, no offense, but your generation versus my generation
I
in terms,
definitely think it gave your generation more of an advantage because of the access to. Um, Us, we had to work a little lot harder because we also had to wait for these magazines to come out, or things maybe through word of mouth if you had been at one of these meets, and then you could get access to the results of those meets. But I would say the speed of delivering the information. But now, as you stated, we're at a point now you can look up anything and have access to the information you need to empower yourself to know more about your competitors if that's what you want, or understanding whatever aspect of powerlifting you're interested in.
I mean, it must have been interesting seeing the rise of something like West Side Barbell, which, when it started was such a private elite club that only it was invitation only. And now they have a website and you can buy their hyper extension and get their T-shirt. It's almost like the commercialization of powerlifting. Have you noticed that in the past couple years?
I've noticed that the interest in the equipment and the style of equipment that we use has grown. Yes, Westside was definitely one of the companies that created a lot of equipment that have been instrumental to powerlifters. But as you can see, there's also been all kinds of companies that have grown, even including, Rogue and then Titan and some of these other ones out there that have created equipment that have made it easier for everyone to be able to afford to be able to buy equipment and train as powerlifters. You name it, there's so many of them out there. So I feel like it's something for everyone to be able to do what they need to keep moving along.
I mean, Rogue has been incredible with even because I primarily follow strongman, but I'm also a big fan of powerlifting. But what they do with something like the Arnold Strongman Classic, the elephant bar that they build, the Husafell stone they replicate, the Wheel of Pain, how crazy is it to think that a lot of powerlifting gyms have logs and farmers? Like the gym I go to Iron Ball.
Mm-hmm.
I think they have a log there. They have farmers, they have a yoke, and all made by Rogue.
I really love it, and it's not because I'm sponsored by them. I love their equipment because I feel that they make great quality equipment. They just do, and I've gotten to a point now where I love where I can walk into a gym and just see the equipment floating around because it's important for us. We need to have good equipment for us to be able to do what we do. And I know some of us don't have access to the equipment that we need because you'll sometimes go into one of these commercial gyms, I'll just say non-powerlifting gyms, and you'll notice like it almost sounds like we're getting to a point where we're almost like elitist because we're so used to training on good equipment. It's like, oh, that knurling, it doesn't have any knurling. It's smooth as hell. Like this isn't the right bar and stuff like that. But we need to have the correct equipment for us to do what we do. So, is what it is.
Yeah, it is. It is funny hearing online, more so people my age who complain about the different kind of knurling, and I don't think this plate was exactly calibrated when you know, it's
It's
around 40.
possible, unless you're gonna
Yeah,
stop your workout to find out.
yeah. I think it's funny to listen to. Um, so I guess you've been doing this for almost 30 years now. Can you say that lifting has had a positive or negative impact on your life?
Lifting has had a huge positive impact on my life. I think, just at the minimum, just teaching you that the boundaries are only as big as you allow them to be. Like constantly being put into situations where I'm having to push myself physically and mentally to see what can I do. Setting myself a standard of what I want to accomplish and breaking that standard and pushing towards something else. Like I think about even the first time, like I deadlifted over 500 pounds, and it was like, oh shit, now what? Can I keep moving? And this is one sport that I love simply for that fact that, like I said, you can keep pushing yourself physically and mentally. It's great for you health wise. I've never had any issues with regards to going to see my doctors. I hope you people are getting your yearly checkups. And part of it is due to the sport I play, and it's because of powerlifting. I just think even it's also a great outlet for like negative stress. We all have negative stress in our life too, and it's a great outlet for being able to release it. Rather than you doing something that could, get you in trouble, you can release it on the bar. So that's how I look at it. I'm very thankful to have had it in my life.
When I go to the doctor, he just calls me fat, but that's different, I guess.
It's probably
Another
not interesting. It's okay.
another side effect of strongman and powerlifting.
Yeah.
So, what kind of how do you try to improve your performance even at this stage? Do you have a coach? Do you go through nutrition, physio, those kind of things?
Everything. Let's see. In my powerlifting career, I've had three coaches. My first coach, Gene Bell, who's still one of my closest friends. I coached myself for about 8 or 9 years, and now a friend of mine's, Greta Harfinson, he coaches me. I just figured, why not? What haven't I done? Because you get to a point where even though I know that I have a lot of knowledge about, competing and coaching and stuff, sometimes, you got to think to yourself, what haven't I tried? And maybe someone else's way of doing something may allow me the opportunity to squeeze out even more kilos. And that's how you have to constantly think as a lifter. You should always be thinking about you have to keep evolving. So I'm constantly reading about, things online, and I like peer review journal articles as well as, of course, some of our favorite websites, including Barbell and other websites that give us guidance and ideas on other ways to train. So you constantly have to be thinking, okay, I'm going to try this concept this cycle, and I'm going to see how it affects my body. If it's something positive, maybe it's just something I can include later. I still think about nutrition. I always think about it. For the most part, I pretty much eat what I want, but I have like a range of macros. I used to hate that damn word. I can't believe I'm actually using it. But I have a range of macros that I got to hit, and I work on doing that every day as well. So nutrition is important. Constantly, reading up on concepts related to training, listening to people who've been there, done that, and it's been successful for them, and getting their perspective, understanding the knowledge from the greats. And no offense against, you guys have been around for like 2 or 3 years. I'm talking about people who've been around for like 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And there's a lot of people who are powerlifting greats who are still around and willing to talk to anyone in powerlifting because they love the sport that much. And those are the people you should be reaching out to. Those are the ones with the extensive resumes that I rely on. So, and that's the things that I think that have helped me continue to stay in the sport this long. And also, I think the other thing is paying attention to your body. As you get older, I think you become more willing to listen to your intuition. Like 20-year-old me was, I'd push myself probably past what I needed to sometimes, and maybe made some poor judgments in training. And it's because that, when you're in your 20s, you think you're invincible. You may not admit it, but we do. We're like, I bounce back. But you'll see as you get older, you don't bounce back as quick sometimes. Sometimes you need a little bit more time to recover. So these are things you got to pay attention to. Like, if you really want to be in this sport for like 10, 15, 20 years, you need to focus on these things. As I've watched people come and go, and, people are forgotten really easy. So my personal opinion, those are things that you should focus on if you really want to stay in this sport for a long time and be healthy.
Yeah, there's certainly a large percentage of people who come in, they're all bright and flashy, they put up a big lift, and then they're just gone.
Yeah.
I would prefer to be someone like Nick Best, when I look back on my career, as opposed to, oh, cool. Like I would rather, really forward thinking on this one. I'd rather my kids see me still competing as a master's lifter than tell them about what I did in college.
Mm-hmm.
Is sort of the trajectory that I'm thinking long term is, okay, great. I lifted in college. Who cares? That's not 10 to 15 years or 20 years. And not everyone's going to agree with me on that. They're going to want to just hit 400 by the time they graduate. But it's,
yeah, but at what expense? And that's what you have to tell yourself.
Exactly. Why? Because part of it too is, why kill yourself for a certain number in a certain time frame when once you hit that number, it'll never be taken away from you. I can't ever take away the fact that you deadlifted 500.
When you're going to hit it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
It took me, let's see, 6 or 7 months to finally hit 500 after I first said I wanted to do it. I initially wanted to do it in April, missed it there, missed it in May, got it like 3 days ago. But, you never know when you're going to hit those numbers.
You just keep fighting for them.
Yeah. But then again, no one can take that away from you once you hit it, which is why I was asking you earlier about, do you have a pressure to have a time frame, or is it just sort of natural when you hit things? But, yeah.
No, it's like I said, you know that for the most part, if training is on point in that cycle, good for that range of numbers, as long as everything is ideal on comp day. So that's what you rely on, and that's what I've relied on over the years. I do everything I need to do during my cycle to get ready, and then anything crazy happening and I don't have to adapt, then I should be able to hit the numbers I want to hit on that day because I've earned it in training. That cycle.
Yeah, and that's you
I
see
just
that in
keep pushing.
you see that in strongman too. You have these guys from Eastern European and the Scandinavian countries who come to the Bahamas and are expected to lift 1,000 pounds. They might have an issue with that, being from a cold climate. And you can have someone like me who's sitting at home and say, "Oh, but he reps 400 kilos. Why is he struggling with it now when it's 110 degrees in California?" But you don't know that unless you're there.
Exactly. That's why I mentioned the whole thing before about the whole traveling and stuff, and people
Right.
don't see that because all they see is you on the platform, you competing. They don't know what you went through to get to the point to be ready to compete.
Right. And they might
So
not
that's
even know
another
how much.
reason why I say that. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. What were you saying?
No, I was going to say, so that's another reason why I say that you try and control as many of those fast as you can. Like getting to the competition, if it's international, 2 days before, 2 or 3 days before, so you can adjust to the time change or food or whatever. Or if you know that you need to eat certain types of things, maybe freezing the food and packing it up and shipping it in another bag. I've even brought cookers with me and stuff. If I knew, like, I would assess before I even get to, the country or what's available around the hotel and stuff. How close is the supermarket, figuring out exactly what I need if I need to eat certain foods. And not saying that they're not going to be there, but maybe you like food a certain way and you may not be able to get it initially when you get to that country. So you want to ensure that you have everything that you need so you can be ready the way you need to be ready. And these are things that people, I think sometimes, especially I guess if you're new and you don't have the right people around you to help guide you, may not necessarily know. But it
Well,
all matters. Also, not going sightseeing before you're about to compete, unless you are on a Segway or in a car or a train. Like, we are serious about not exerting injury, regardless of sport. And I can't tell you, there's been plenty of times I'd be in certain like championships, and I see people out sightseeing days before, walking around. Like, do you understand that you're just making that harder on yourself and easier for your competitors? Your competitors have, and they may also be your friends, because not all your competitors are your friends. But you think they're not fine seeing you walking around tiring yourself out? And you may not necessarily think that you're not tiring yourself out, but you are, because you're in a whole new environment. It's all about conserving your energy and being at your best. You can have fun after you compete, because isn't that initially why you came to a competition? Take care of business first, and then you can play after.
yeah, there's a funny story of the 2019 World's Strongest Man, Martins Licis.
Yeah.
In his one, I think it was his first Giants Live international show. He went hiking in the mountains of Iceland and then did a show the next day. I mean, and he was like, "Yeah, I was really sore when I had to go pull that truck because he was climbing up a mountain the day before." And going back to your conversation about the food, I believe it was 1998 World's Strongest Man,
Uh-huh.
where 22 out of 25 competitors got food poisoning. And so you go from that to someone like Brian Shaw, who, he's like The Rock. He brings an entire setup with him anywhere he goes.
Yeah.
I think he has all his meals. He brings cookers. He might even bring his own fridge. I'm not sure, but I think he brings like a microwave, a little toaster oven, like a little George Foreman grill. Like, he has all the stuff with him. And you see the progression of learning, and also goes back to what you said about learning from the greats who came before you. If you're a student of the sport like you or Brian is, you look back at what went wrong in 1998. None of them were adjusted to the diet there. They all got food poisoning, and they all, when you're having 350-pound guys drop 20 pounds the day before a competition, they're not going to perform as well, right? And so you learn from that, and now Brian has his whole entourage with him.
You got
But
people. You learn how much you can travel with. You check on those airlines to see how much baggage, how much it costs if you got to bring something heavy. But like I said, the difference between you being better prepared versus you possibly having to deal with a situation that puts you at a disadvantage. So.
yeah, and that's also part of the reason why I like talking to top level athletes like yourself is, from my perspective, I watch you lift in the gym and then I watch you lift on the platform. I don't get to see all that, you know, are you making it to your plane on time? Do you have your meals right? You might post it on your story, but you're really getting an insight into all those little things that add up that you might not initially think of as a casual viewer.
And it's been the same over my whole career. And I think a lot of us, it's not just me, a lot of us are kind of the same way, do some of the same things. So like I said, it's that old adage that anything worth having, is not easy. You have to work for. And it works for this too. Like even in my gym, I have this sign that says, don't put in half of the effort unless you're okay with half of the results. Like, you know what you do to prepare and what you don't do to prepare. So if you want to be proud of what you accomplish on that meet day, if you want to be 100%, mindful of everything that's going on, then you need to do everything you need to do to be ready. And that's the reality of it. Only you're going to be able to control that. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, going into my last comp, I knew every single rep that I missed, where I went wrong, what I should have done better. Should I have scaled this thing back a little bit? Should I have changed up this? Like, you have to constantly be thinking about those things if you want to improve, right?
Yeah, it doesn't change. So
It's that obsessive mentality really does help. I don't think I've spoken with a single person at your level of either bodybuilding, strongman, powerlifting, weightlifting, who doesn't have that obsessive quality of, I think I've watched my deadlift video from Wednesday about 150 times.
oh yeah, I still watch my, yeah,
Yeah,
same way. And
I
that's great that you don't ever lose that. I'm serious, because you'll always be able to look, and even after I hit the lift in training, before I even get to my next set, while I'm sitting there and I'm resting, I'm reviewing it and seeing, okay, what do I need to fix or tweak on this next set, so I can be better. And you're also developing your coaching ability as well, just by you simply doing that, because you're learning how your body, not only your body, but even when you're looking at other lifters' bodies, how they adjust to certain tweaks just simply because of how they're lifting. And that's only going to make you a better coach as well.
yeah, like I said, I train at the same gym as Taylor Atwood,
Mm-hmm.
and when I watch him lift, it's lift, does his thing, and then he's on his phone staring at that video for his entire rest period. Maybe he'll get a drink of water or something, but other than that, he's not talking to anyone. He's not being social. He's there to perform, and I mean, he's social when he's not in that sort of training mode.
Right.
But he's there. He looks at his lifts. He says, "All right, this is what I did wrong. This is where I could have been better." And it's very interesting watching that in person, because I'm just sitting there trying not to pass out when I finish my lifts, but he's a more sound mind than I am, I guess. So speaking of your goals and when you might hit them, what do you have planned for yourself in the future?
Like regarding like what's the next meet or something, you mean?
We'll say powerlifting, life, and if
Oh,
those two intertwine.
well, as far as, powerlifting, like, no surprise. I just want to keep pushing as long as I can, as long as God and my body and, family and support continues pushing me forward. I'm going to do it as long as I can. I say, again, that I know we only have the strength for a finite amount of time, and I'm trying to maximize it as best I can. If and when that day comes, then I'll make the decision I need to, whether, transitioning into, just coaching or just finding another sport or whatever. As far as personally, I'm literally focused every day on just being the best version of myself for God and the people in my family, and getting the most out of life, trying to experience as much as I can, meaning like as many positive experiences as you can, traveling, enjoying, like I said, time with my girlfriends or friends and family, or just anything that's going to bring positivity to your life. It's not trying to be morbid in any way, but it's the truth. We don't know how long we have on this earth. I pray I have decades more, but I just want to make the most out of it, and always make sure you're working on improving your quality of life. So that's really important to me. I don't know if it's maybe because I'm in my 40s and older than some of the other people here, but that is hugely important to me, is quality of life.
I mean, you're only M1, you're not that old, but
Yeah, I know. But shit. It's been a long 40-something years. So,
Yeah. So speaking of those long 40-something years, if you could go back a couple decades and speak with your 18-year-old self, what do you think you'd say to that version of you?
I would say that if I was, because this is all going to be powerlifting stuff because it's powerlifting, I would tell my 20-year-old self that, Kimberly, you need to warm up more. Mobility and flexibility is important because your 40-year-old self will thank you. Uh, I would tell myself if something didn't feel right during a set before I started it, that maybe I should stop instead of trying to continue, because there's a chance I may hurt myself and something that I'll have to try and either work around or stop training because I have to recover from something. I mean, those are the biggest things. So talking to you 20-year-olds, mobility and flexibility is important, and your future self is going to thank you. So if you don't have some type of mobility program, you got to do something. I'm telling you, it affects every aspect of how you're training, and nothing is more humbling, if for those of you who haven't been to a PT, than when you go to a PT for the first time and they put you through a series of mobility tests and you can't do much. So just something to think about.
All right. Well, I think that's all I have for you today.
Oh, good, bro.
Thank you for your time,
Oh, thank you for talking.
and
Thank you for those who wanted to tune in and hang with us for a little bit too.
yeah, I think it's one of our biggest turnouts. It's,
All good.
so have a good day. Good luck with your training,
Thank you.
and hopefully you'll see you top of the podium at Worlds.
No problem. You know, I got to earn it just like everybody else. Everyone's chasing the same goal.
Of
So,
course.
yeah. Guys, if
We'll,
you ever want to contact us, tell them who you are, Cornell Barbell, so they can contact you. And then you can hit me up at Track Food or Kimberly Walford on Instagram or Facebook. But also, thank you to Cornell Barbell for contacting us. So,
like I said, we're happy to have you. Happy to
yeah.
have you on. So thank you, and have a good day.
All right. Thank you, guys.